And welcome to Streamlining Insurance, brought to you by the Risk and Insurance Education Alliance, providing a practical advantage at every career stage. I'm your host, Darren Bloomfield, the insurance guy at Feathery. Joining me today is Chris Luiz. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, Darren. Great to meet you. Great to not meet you. We've met before, but great to be on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. No, we've been on the conference circuit already this year, but yeah, I know you have a couple different roles right now and some synergies between both of them. Just you can jump in briefly and just give some context of your background and your day to day.
You bet. So my primary role is running Scout InsurTech. So we are an organization that helps the insurance industry understand how to leverage and engage with technology better. So there's a whole bunch of pieces that we have that contribute to that. But that's what we do. And Scout itself is a spin out of commercial elements of InsurTech Ohio. So InsurTech Ohio has been around for about 6 years. We've been buying beers and building grassroots community in and around Ohio for a long time. And that persists as a community for organizations working within insurance in Ohio.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like you said it, like first you start as kind of like a happy hour, there's so many different like insurance like events, and like, insurance is a very relational industry. So just whatever you can do to like put the right people in the right room, at the right time. But yeah, just kind of curious, like high level, if you were to just try to start, an insurance conference from scratch, or if you were just trying to give like advice to someone on how to scale, because there's so many different conferences. How do you go from like a quarterly happy hour to like a 2-day conference?
Yeah, well, for us, it was probably not in the way that most of these events came to fruition. So we were doing much more than quarterly happy hours. We were already doing monthly happy hours in 3 cities. With tons of insurance professionals and insurance companies headquartered in those cities. So we created what we did based on feedback that we had from our community, the folks that we sat down next to month in and month out and had conversations about like, what would you like to see? What would be helpful in your role from an industry perspective? And we started throwing larger events, social events, and really took very small incremental steps. So we went from, 20, 30 person happy hours to 150 person social events. It took us several years, 3 or 4 years before we got to our current conference venue, 2 years. This will be the 3rd year that we're in the same venue. The first venue, we had 170 people. It's a half day, not even maybe a half day, very light content. Year 2 was 300 people and it was some more content. We had 24 companies on stage, and this year is going to be more like 500 plus people and 50 plus companies. So to get to your point, I wouldn't suggest that somebody stand up and be like, I'm going to start a conference, because there's a lot of them. And it's not that there's not room for something more, but it's challenging to find how to create something that is novel and also serves the needs of your customers. And before you have customers, I'm a startup guy, so it's like very hard to know what their needs are if you're not having those conversations with them.
Yeah, no, and I think that's it. Is like, you need a reason for people to go somewhere. Like there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of travel in like the conference space. I wouldn't say it's completely saturated, and I've only, been to a few so far this year. And, in this new role, it's just kind of a lot of conferences and travel in the InsurTech kind of startup space. But it's very interesting of like, you have to have the right city, the right venue, kind of the right timing. Like, why do people want to go to a certain city, in that month? Like, oh, it's going to be like you might not do a conference in August in Florida, because it's going to be too hot. So kind of like something like that is like the strategy. And then like avoiding kind of conflicts in like calendar. Like there's some weeks or months where there was like multiple InsurTech kind of conferences like at once, which kind of spreads people too thin. But also like getting the right people in the room, and also just making a space where like deals can actually happen and where you can get the ROI. How do you balance having, like the brokers and the carriers with, vendors? Because like the vendors need to get an ROI, but they actually have to be offering like a product, like an innovative product, and currently probably like AI based or automation based to actually like be there. But I think that's kind of your unique skill set is having that matchmaking ability, just in general, to understand what, say, a startup does and how that fits with these more established brokers and carriers.
So I'm a multiple time founder. I've joined several early stage companies as essentially the first or second employee. I've built physical products, delivered them to market. I've built software, delivered that to market. I've worked at a carrier. I've worked at a company that was selling into carriers. So from my understanding of the greater industry, I know how to build things and deliver them. And I know what the players in our industry right now are looking for on each side. Now, from the conference citing and the vendor piece. So for us, Ohio is a real hotbed of insurance. There are 275 carriers domiciled in the state. There's something like 140 that are headquartered there. And of those, there are Progressive and National Interstate and AmTrust have the biggest office in the U.S. in Cleveland, I believe. In Columbus, you have Nationwide and Cova, Grange. Westfield is between Cleveland and Columbus. You have Ohio Mutual out west a little bit, Central Insurance, which are smaller mutuals. These are all partners of ours. And down in Cincinnati, you have Cincinnati Insurance, Western and Southern Life, and Great American. I'm just touching the top of what is available to us in the state. We have the second most P&C employees in the state. So for us to be able to, Columbus is pretty centrally located. It's about a 2-hour or less drive from anywhere in Ohio. So for us, the amount of carriers across the basically highway corridor from corner to corner of Ohio, Columbus being centrally located, it's a pretty cool city as well. And there's a lot of InsurTech happening there. So Branch, Beam, Battleface, Root, these are all headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. Drive Capital, which is backed a few of these companies, is also there. So there's a lot of support for building new things in our industry. Now to touch on the part, how do you design a conference environment such that everybody gets what they want? I find it really curious. And I was on the vendor side, so I feel this. Everybody complains if a conference is too vendor centric. The vendors are complaining, the carriers are complaining, everyone's complaining. And so you have to really strike a balance between how much you're running commercial efforts there. So one of the things that we do that is different than many conferences is we don't have an expo floor. I could make more money selling booths to everybody that wanted to write me a check, but it would contribute to a situation that I think produces more noise than what my partners on the carrier and brokerage side want. Being more selective. So as you can see, you can see part of my logo up there, but I'm part of Scout InsurTech. And what we do is we find companies that are under the radar of the largest carriers and brokers in the country, provide them a stage to demonstrate what they're doing, how they can do it, and how they may be able to partner with the carriers. And the carriers know that I'm not going to be pushing things to them that are relevant all the time. They're going to say, Chris, I have 3 objectives. How can you help me with those? And then I will only send them the appropriate, from a matchmaking perspective, the appropriate companies that are at the right stage, at the right product, that perhaps, their competitor has not invested in. And I do all this through the creation of data on these companies. So I'm interviewing companies all the time. I often get the question, how are you different than PitchBook or something like Tegas, some of these other market intelligence companies? Many of them are aggregating a lot of data that's publicly available and doing a great job of presenting it in such a way that it's consumable and understandable. We are creating new information about all of these companies. I am having conversations with them. I know where they are in the process. And I know contextually when they are right to partner with each of with many of my carrier partners and brokerage partners. So that's like a long way to say, we have experienced a lot of the bad in the industry as founders and builders, and I did have as well on the carrier side. We're trying to avoid it as much as possible. And we're trying to use our understanding of the industry to contextually build something that is, maybe 45 degrees different than a lot of what's out there, and delivers more of what people are asking for versus, unfortunately, sometimes what they are expecting to pay for.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Is trying to carve out like your unique offering, like in like the not only like the conference space, but I guess just kind of like your brand, like with Scout, as well.
Yeah, that's right. So we have the conference coming up, and that's a big deal. That's the biggest single event that we put on per year. But we throw more events than any other InsurTech organization in the world, as far as I know. I've talked to a lot of them. So we did like 40 events last year. We'll do more than that this year. And, only somewhere between 5 and 7 of them will be greater than 100 people. But we are consistently touching folks in our network. And so a lot of times folks ask what I do, and I'm like, hey, there's all these things that I do, and you're going to see these. You're going to see our content on LinkedIn. We're pushing 175 interviews a year, plus additional promotional content for both our carriers, our partners, and ourselves. We run a light tech accelerator for early stage companies. That's totally free. And we run a corporate development program for carriers and brokerages. And these, again, are features. What we do is we create an environment where all year you can build relationships and understand contextually what people do and when the right time is to interact with them. And you can use me and my team as a conduit to understand that better. We're delivering a marketplace driven by relationships and trust within the insurance industry.
Yeah. Can you give, say, like a 1, 2, 3 checklist of like figuring out like what a company actually does, in like the startup space, like InsurTech space, sometimes like these AI automation, digital transformation, like companies, softwares, programs, like it's very hard to like capture all that like on a website. So what's kind of like the process of like evaluating what does a vendor do, and then kind of your role of like mentoring in a sense, and then also like helping find that product market fit?
Yeah, well, I mean, finding product market fit is tough. I can make suggestions as to whether I think that is possible or doable, or if I've seen other things that are similar. But the way this process starts is somebody finds me or I find them. So we have a program manager that's reaching out into the world and looking for early stage companies. I'm constantly scanning the market. And what we do is reach directly out to the founder and say, hey, I'm Chris. This is what I do. I'd like to talk to you about your company and profile you. And doing that, it makes it available for my carrier partners to discover you. And it's free. So typically they're happy to have a conversation with me. I book 30 minutes with them. We go through a series of questions that we've developed internally on our side to characterize what the company does and where it came from and what stage it is and why folks might be interested and what type of folks might be interested, whether that's appropriate across, agent and broker tech, carriers, life, health, P&C, commercial, personal lines, whatever it may be, right? Understand contextually what market they're serving. And then I have them answer those questions for me on an interview. And at the end of the interview, towards the end of it, I say, your company does X. And I try and sum it up in a single line. And if I can't do that, not that I'm the smartest guy in the world or know everything about insurance, but if I am incapable of summarizing what that company has done, is what that founder has told me their company is doing in one line, then we all have a problem, because the chance that that person is going to be able to communicate it to a carrier person or somebody that understands the market, perhaps not quite as broadly as I do, unless it's a really niche subject, is pretty low. So, and then I tell them, like, I don't think I understand what you do yet. And we have a longer conversation. So in doing that, we gather recorded demos and recorded pitches and things from the early stage companies, and I make those available to my partners. So I get questions sometimes. They're like, I don't know what these guys do. And I respond with that feedback to the founders. Like, you guys need to tighten up your messaging. And if the messaging isn't tight enough, and I don't think there's really enough there, even if it's, a pre-seed company that's idea-based, they just don't go further in my program, because I can't responsibly put them in front of carriers. There's no way they can serve them. They're just looking for feedback, and that's fine. And I'll make introductions and things, but so we look for folks that are ready to serve our customers before we take them on to that next level.
Yeah. And that process like takes time, like just kind of seeing it of like, there's kind of a disconnect, if you will, between like the, brokers and carriers, whether it be like IT operations people or like kind of managers that are like they have a sense of what their problem is, but they can't they struggle to articulate what their problem is. So then they go to like the vendors, or they go to someone like you, and they're like looking like, I need help, but like I can't really tell you what I'm looking for, but like this is the problem, or at least I think this is the problem. You know, we don't know our budget to fix this. We don't know how to compare like all these different vendors like in the space. And then it goes back to like the startups that are like very excited, full of energy with like, oh, I have like, this is my idea. You know, oh, I made this and we did this for this company and we've had some success, but like, how do I do this for other companies? And then it's like kind of like then they talk. You know, I've been to a few like working a couple of trade show booths like already this year, and it's like operations IT folks will talk to me and they'll be like, so how is your company different than that company? And I'm like, well, you know, are you really walking into like Target and being like, how is Target different from Walmart? Or like how is that like on the startup itself to like know all the players in the space, know what every company does? Like when is it like on the consumer to be like an educated consumer?
Well, I mean, that's super challenging. And that's the point that I really help the carriers and brokerages. So, you know, the folks that I typically engage with are not usually the operational folks. It's like strategy, innovation, corporate development, corporate venture, partnerships, and distribution people. So I like to think of these as the folks that are at major corporations on the carrier brokerage side that explicitly are looking outside of their business for deals, for opportunities that are not sales. So, and we interact with sales folks too, but that's just mostly people are interacting with me like I have this problem or this set of problems or this set of things that I think could be better, and I need to look out into the future and evaluate how I might be able to do that. Now, a carrier, you know very well, is getting dozens or many more than that emails from vendors, and they're just deleting them. They're like, I don't have time to spend 30 minutes with every one of these folks understanding what it is. That's where Scout comes in. So now somebody that a group that's running an innovation team or a strategy team, I don't replace that team, not at all. What I do is make that their aperture much better. So rather than looking out widely across the entire world of what's happening in the technology industry, you can say like, I have this problem, and I can say, great, you know what? I have 7 companies I've talked to in the last 6 months that are solving that problem, sort of. One of them is much too early stage. That's not going to work for you. One of them, I think their product is like not quite there. Even though they're a little bit later stage, they're probably not going to meet your needs. That could be like an integration issue. That could be something else. Oftentimes we have carriers and brokerages that have like nemesises, right? Maybe that's too strong of a word, but it's like the Ohio State, Michigan thing. They're like, if they're doing it, we're not doing it. And perhaps they made an investment or they have a public statement from one of their competitors. So I just let them know that stuff. And then I say, I have relationships with all these founders. These are the 2 or 3 that, given your criteria, I think are the best fit for you. Would you like me to make introductions? I have pitch decks. I have recorded demos of all of them. You can look at those in my materials, and just helping them do that. So the amount of time that's going to save 1 or 2 people or a team of innovation folks is pretty outrageous. And we do it, and we do that all day. And that's how I like to work with our carriers.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a skill set and definitely like a value add like in the space. What would you say is kind of like a couple current like themes or kind of like emerging tools or trends like in this like digital strategy kind of space now of like, this like ChatGPT kind of innovation to now like AI automation, but on like how would you kind of separate that of like the themes in the last like couple years or like these products versus like what you were seeing like, like 5-7 years like prior? Has there been like a very like drastic kind of change in like these, let's say like groupings between like these vendors and what they're doing compared to like what they're doing, say like pre-ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that are changing. So first, every company is for better or worse, claiming that they're an AI company. And I see this as same as like every company claiming they were a cloud company a long time ago. Like, oh, it's cloud. Like, okay, does it solve my problem or does it not solve my problem? So I'm a former data scientist and machine learning engineer. So like my sweet spot, I know data science, I know machine learning engineering. I was doing vision work at Progressive 10 years ago. So it's hard to BS me on whether the AI is there doing something or not. And now I've spent the rest of my career, or my career since then in sort of innovation type of roles and understanding technology and enterprise B2B SaaS. So when it comes down to somebody selling a product into a carrier or brokerage, they're going to claim that it has some things in it. And I frankly don't care. I want to see the end effect. Like, what problem are you solving? And so I'd say that the biggest thing is that everyone claims they have AI when they should be focused on the problem. So are you solving I don't know what it might be, whatever it may be. If you're using ChatGPT, maybe you're doing summarization. Maybe you're doing a legal tech thing where it's policy review. Maybe you're doing, right? And it's like really narrow. There's one company that I spoke to recently that I frankly, when I started the conversation, I was like, it's just like another one of these companies telling me that they're using AI and they don't have it set. However, brilliant, because they were focused on such a small part of the market, which is the communication process between MGAs and reinsurers when they're going to buy underwriting policies. And they do that part so well, and they use AI in it, but like, it's just that they're doing that little narrow piece so incredibly well that I think that's great. But your question to more specifically to it, new theme. So everything is AI, or they're saying it is, no matter what problems they're solving. Things that are exceptionally different that I'm pretty interested in is the degree of like voice assistants that are really pretty good. AI-driven voice assistants, like doing the amount of time and effort you can save in an agency, brokerage, or in a call center is pretty amazing. And that's something that's like brand new over the past couple of years. That and they kind of had these things. They were terrible. Like, they were really bad. And now they're quite a bit better. I am seeing a shift too from like for a long time within the personal lines realm, everybody was just taking rate, and you can only do that for so long. And I think now there is more of a feel that it's time to reduce expenses. So like the general feel, and particularly like in the claims world, there's a lot of opportunity because they spend a lot of money in claims and loss adjusting expenses. But there's a lot of products that are serving that now. And I see that as like, some of those were there, but now I see them as really coming into prominence because I think the demand from these large organizations for those
like for home
is there now.
So do you say like something like that, like the losses to claims now are like triggering, you're at that point where like you can't raise the rates much more. So then like, what do you do if you can't raise revenue? You have to lower expenses to like increase profits. So like it's that kind of creating the necessity for these carriers, these brokers now to like adopt these products to like cut down their expenses with these automation tools. Like, it's kind of like a dual storm. Like, it's almost out of necessity and also now like availability. Like, these products exist and they can actually help. Like, they're ready to be used.
That's right. There's always things that could be done to reduce loss adjusting expenses and technology you can adopt to do that. But the degree to which they're effective now has increased quite dramatically. And in the home, like personal property world, certainly like the rebuild cost of homes in conjunction with increased cat events has made things challenging and frankly, poor underwriting. So like if you're underwriting a house at a certain time and like the rebuild cost is grossly more than what you expected, and you have rated the wildfire or flood risk much lower, like that is poor underwriting. It's not just all of these other things, right? It is that. So they could do better there. So there's an opportunity there and better underwriting as well. And personal lines auto, it's similar in that the cost of repairing a car. I heard I was talking to a founder yesterday or 2 days ago, and he said like 20% now of accidents result in total losses between 1 and 2 of those cars. The volume of sensors and advanced sort of stuff that they're packing into cars now, that's very sensitive, is challenging because you get in an accident and you break all that stuff and like it's not worth fixing the car anymore. That with the inversion of the used prices during COVID that has maintained pretty high. I don't know what the exact rates are right now, but it's hard to continue to raise the rates, like I said before. Now, how do you reduce those expenses? There's some things that are out of your control, right? Wildfires are out of your control. Now, you can stop serving a certain area of the country. You can certainly do that and pull out, and there are other repercussions there. And on the auto side, because of the amount of sensors in cars, the OEMs aren't going to stop doing that. They're going to continue to have high total loss rates. But how do you reduce all the other costs? Whether that's cycle time, whether that's getting a check into somebody's hand, whether that is just the evaluation of whether the car is repairable or not, that leads also to cycle time. But there's a whole bunch of pieces there. And a lot of that is handoffs and claims. I worked in claims analytics, so I saw a lot of this. It was, even in a well-run company, it can be outrageous how long it takes to get something handed off one time after another, while people wait on their money, and that makes nobody happy. So it's also an increased satisfaction from the claimant, which is, that leads to greater lifetime value expectancy.
Yeah, no, definitely makes sense. And to switch gears here, do you have any advice for, say, a professional that's in insurance and maybe a more traditional kind of legacy carrier broker space, or maybe an adjacent industry to help someone get into the quote unquote InsurTech space, and any advice on how somebody can make that transition more smoothly, or even why somebody would want to do that in their career?
Sure. So one thing that I would suggest if they're at a legacy carrier or brokerage is find the areas inside of that brokerage or carrier that are looking out into the world at other things. So positioning yourself into a position that looks out into and faces the industry. So you're going to make a lot of connections. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to see a lot of things that you wouldn't only looking internally at the company that you're at. That's the first one. The second is that there's a number of events. Certainly if you're close to where I'm throwing events, come to them. We're all very friendly. Almost all of the people, the more senior people that I know, spent some time at carriers, right? So you're gonna get a feel for how did they do it, and how did you see it, and where'd you make that transition? One of the really common paths, and the one that I made, is to go from a somewhat outward facing role at a carrier where you're bringing technology into the company and then leaving and joining that company that you brought in. So that is a very common path into the insurance technology world, but you don't have to be at an InsurTech necessarily to be engaging in the world itself. You can come to Scout, you can go to ITC, you can go to a bunch of these other conferences, and they're great. ITC is a little overwhelming for sure. It depends how much you like Vegas. I can find myself pretty worn out after a couple days.
I heard you gotta wear good walking shoes. I'll be there in a few months, so I heard wear walking shoes and not dress shoes. That's the one tip I've heard.
Oh yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah. And then as we wrap up here, is there anything that I didn't ask you about streamlining insurance? Any exciting news or thoughts you want to share as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I would say, so I'll just give you a view, what I'm most excited about. I feel that the industry recently has shifted a little bit. And for a long time, we generally as an industry have been, the carriers, I guess, have been spending and investing less in new technology. And I feel that is changing now. It feels like there's more investment happening, that there's more interest in looking outside of the company for new things. And to me, that's really exciting. So that doesn't necessarily lead to greater technology sales from a particular InsurTech. What it does over time is it creates an environment where there's going to be more investment activity, there's going to be more acquisition activity, and there's going to be more interesting things to do and to see. And to me, that's really exciting. That's I'm in this because I love all the new products, and I love seeing how technology advances in our industry, and it's a very exciting time to be here.
Yeah, no, definitely, it's cool. Sometimes I think I'm like, man, I wish I had these tools when I was underwriting. So maybe one day I'll get to use them on the other side. But yeah, well, thanks so much for your time, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate it. This is great.